right, welcome to Imperial Advisor, episode 14. As we were just saying there, it's 2 minutes past and it's late, so we can finally start because we don't start on time. And in classic fashion, as soon as we aired our show last time round, they came out with a big announcement. So we'll be discussing that, the 6 packs in 6 weeks. We'll look forward a little bit to Worlds. Maybe talk a little bit about the Athens tournament. I know Baz did a little piece that got quite a bit of attention. Just some of the headlines from that, and then we're going to look at a couple of decks, and then some Beaver facts, because it wouldn't be Imperial Advisor without a Beaver fact. I'm
sweating already.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a proper textbook at this stage. I'm not sure there's a proper Beaver textbook, but yeah. I'm going to.
We should maybe go for like Beaver fact or fiction, and then allow the audience to decide whether or not it's.
That's good. Although we've done like most of the facts, so it's just fiction. It's basically Eoin makes up Beaver stuff.
All right. Starts researching beavers in real life. I mean, those are the two choices we have here.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to give up teaching and become a beaver researcher.
Yeah, full-time beaverologist. I don't know.
That's something else, I think. So what have you guys been up to L5 wise? Maybe start with Andy, because Andy got his boxes.
I finally have cards and decks, decks plural and stuff. It's great. Yeah, I've been spending, most of my free time playing with a friend of mine here in Berlin, and we've just been going through all of the decks, all of the things, and trying to come up with different ways, gearing up towards WorkCon in January. So I want to get I know it's going to be a different environment by then, but getting a good foundation in the game and the mechanics, and just making things mechanical for myself in terms of how you play the game, which I'm failing at miserably, by the way. This is a very difficult game.
And how do you go about that for yourself? I'm kind of curious about the way you express that.
So what I like to do is, my old style in old 5R was make a deck that pilots itself to a swift and crushing victory. Now that's not the case in the current game. I can't make that kind of deck. I don't know if I ever will be with the flat economy system that they have. So what I'm trying to do now is actually become a relatively decent player and internalize some of the actions that you might take that become, I don't know, the status quo, or the usual way that you play this game, like how you make investments, how you make choices, like taking into consideration the important things the guys have said in the past, like you will not be able to do everything you want to in one turn. Being able to price the cost of things and then associate the value of that thing with that. So, and then be able to make a decision. So it's trying to internalize as much of that as possible so I can concentrate on other stronger strategy or more high level strategy.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds interesting to track your progress, because I think for me that was one of the big things of that helped the game feel less brain destroying, was starting to get a few heuristics and shortcuts about how I'm gonna invest in guys, how I'm gonna bid, and having a strategy built rather than sort of trying to figure out it every decision every time and play 2.5 hour games.
Yeah. It comes with reps. I mean, it's muscle memory as much as anything else. So you keep hammering away, you keep making the mistakes, and I make tons of mistakes, as Justin well knows, playing me for 10, 15 years.
Oh yeah, well we all do.
All right.
Not
except
Andy,
you.
Though. Oh no, do you know me?
Yeah, I can't keep a straight face with that one.
Nah.
Justin, how have your few weeks of games been going?
Yeah, they've been going grand. I haven't been doing a huge amount, in fairness. The news that the 6 packs were dropping kind of took the wind out of my sails a bit, because once the game is going to be completely different. We'll have the card pool will be almost doubled in size, and we haven't got a clue about what's coming up. There are no previews for any of the stuff yet, really. So we're just staring into the great big unknown, and with no competitions coming up. I've been playing with Phoenix and just trying out various different splashes and tweaking things here and there. And yeah, just I don't know, kind of waiting for the 6 packs to drop so we can so we so we can finally really get to terms with this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, just mainly kind of trying out splashes and yeah, just playing a few games with different clans actually, just to see what they feel like and how they play. And my God, do they all play differently? It's really surprising.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Baz?
Yeah, similar enough. I've been making the Monday nights in our local store Gamers World. I also made it down to the War Chest a couple of times for like they had a small tournament which ended up being 4 players, which I won.
Hey.
Distressingly beating my wife in the finals. So straight to the
rookie mistake.
Rough night.
Victory. Yeah. But yeah, I've been getting some games in. I've put together a line deck to try that out and see what's going on. Yeah, just getting used to it. And actually, what Andy was talking about, the heuristics, I'm trying to unlearn those now. I've picked up a couple of bad habits.
Next level.
I need to stop doing silly things. Like I've gotten used to making a big guy or mulligan for a first turn big guy with lots of fate on him, and I look over and I see my opponent's crab, and I'm like, "Whoa, that was a mistake." Need to think these ones through slowly. So just bits like that. But yeah, a lot of depth in the game. Still meeting more and more people. Today, I got a quick game in before this, and was chatting to one of the Magic players who is totally enthralled with the mechanics of this. Referring to the fate system as revolutionary, to go that far. But we're getting a real widespread, and a lot of people are really enjoying this game. So we're going to see a pretty fantastic community once it builds up.
Sweet. And Eoin, are you in training mode, Rocky montage mode?
I'm trying to be. Went down to Cork actually for one of their release events, and got my second Altar and Sarnai. Because that's how I roll.
Great.
Because the first ones were of course random selection, so I got the Altar and Sarnais. Woohoo! Had a bunch of good games down there. It was mostly just sitting around kind of free play, which is what the event is meant to be about. I played some single core games, played some triple core games. Yeah, I mean, the more I play it, the more I think that your play style is going to do things like it'll alter how the game runs for you, even so much as, wow, my play style actually means that I can run this deck as a kind of a conquest deck, or I can run it as a dishonor deck, effectively the same deck, because the moment there's so few choices to be made on the dynasty side. Then I'm ultimately agonizing over my conflict deck. I'm agonizing over particularly the splash I'm going to put in, and I'm agonizing over whether I should play charge or not. I'm leaning towards I think I should probably play charge, even if it's just charge as a defensive trick. I think, and also to smooth out draws where you see a lot of expensive guys, I think I'd use charge for that. And you basically hold it until that sort of thing goes wrong for you, or depending on how you see it, goes right for you. So it's very interesting. I would be playing a lot of different, kind of trying to play the whole hashtag #OsBid1, and finding that it's a lot about making sure your initial draw of 5 cards is solid enough to withstand your opponent's draw of up to 9, and try and tough out that bit. But yeah, I'm agonized, but I'm cycling between a Splashing Dragon versus Splashing Unicorn at the moment. So yeah, it's interesting at least.
Splashing Unicorn basically just for the
card draw. The card draw Spyglass.
The Spyglass, yeah. Spyglass, and would you play the mount? Yeah.
I might
not necessarily.
Crab. I might play the Aichi Wayfinder and Crab.
Oh, okay.
As a scouting thing, but it's basically not as important. I could run. There will be a build of Crab which would use Captive Audience.
Yeah, I would have thought
potentially
that would be
good effect, but that's not every build of Crab. There are. I don't think it's this one yet. I think if certain other cards come along, I think there will be a more military conflict heavy Crab deck with a few more berserkers in a period of time, and I think that'll be a big factor in the design as the more cards come online and we start to actually go, well, actually we've got major choices to make at the dynasty deck now, which is really important.
Interesting. All right, so we sort of touched on it a bit already. We had the announcement, I think the day after it started leaking the 6 packs of 6 weeks, and then FFG came out and sort of announced it properly. Previewed a few of the cards, I think, as well. They didn't. I was kind of surprised they didn't really explain a lot of their reasoning why. I mean, I think we can. We can guess at some of it. But I don't know. What did you guys think? I don't want to run with that.
I'll take it on first if you don't mind. The fact that no explanation comes, I immediately go to like suspicion and negativity, negative thoughts.
That's just you.
So,
it's nothing to do with that.
Yeah. I guess so. But I think after playing the game for like a bunch of times, I can see why they would want to introduce an injection of cards into the environment to spice it up a little. I mean, you can, as we've all sort of seen and said, and people who've played the game more than me have probably noticed as well, the Dynasty side especially is very, very stale, or it's very sort of stagnant at the moment. And I think if you introduce more conflict cards of more types, you can then definitely see more variations. Like I've had in my head, okay, what if you were to have a conflict deck that had lots and lots of conflict characters, and you basically play all your conflict characters from hand. All your characters that come into play come out from your hand. That would be sort of a cool deck to exist, I think, but it currently can't really exist in this environment because it's just you can't possibly have enough conflict personalities or conflict characters. But so yeah, injecting stuff into the environment, I think, is a really, really nice idea from them. The skeptic in me was like, okay, what does this mean for the company? Do they just need cash flow? Did they just like, because this seems like a massive cost for them, or maybe it was actually a greater cost to stretch it over 6 weeks, and they just realized, okay, we have all this stuff, let's just distribute it all as one and sell it this way because it's cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that my first thought was the effect on sort of the more sort of casual people who've bought like one box and are considering, do they go all in and get their 3, and when they suddenly see, okay, there's actually going to be another big chunk of cash around Christmas, which is an expensive time anyway. Justin, what are your thoughts on how that might affect sort of, I guess, the wider fan base?
Yeah, okay, no, sorry, as I marshal my thoughts. Okay, so they're going to be kind of there's a small matrix of players. Okay, so they're going to be casual players who are able to afford it, casual players who really probably aren't able to afford the sudden cash requirement. And then there will be dedicated players who will just find the money somehow because they're dedicated players and they're really into it. For the dedicated players, it's a godsend. I think it's very, very exciting. And actually, Blue Sapphire was just pointing out in chat that Thrones of Netrunner had about 6 months of the same meta after Worlds, and this is a direct antidote to that. So basically, we'll have Worlds meta, all that will come out, and that will be instantly swept away by a huge expansion of the card pool. Which, from the few cards we've so far, looks like it is going to completely change a lot of the paradigms of the games at the moment. There are a lot of really kind of interesting, exciting cards from what we've seen. For casual players, like I said, they're the casual players who have money and they'll probably pick the stuff up. That'll be fine. For the casual players who don't necessarily have the money immediately, it's definitely going to be a bit of a turn-off, I think. Part of it is because even if you're a casual player, that doesn't mean that you can't be as excited as anybody else about the game and about the cards that are coming out. And if a sudden roadblock is put in your way, like, here's a large amount of money that you have to shell out to stay current with the game, that can be very, very disappointing and honestly quite upsetting. So that's not great. And to compound that, you have the fact that with the popularity of the game, there's every chance these packs could sell out really, really quickly. And then you are a casual player who doesn't have the money, who then is stuck in a position where the packs just aren't available anymore, which is even more dispiriting. So yeah, so for the hyper enthusiastic part of the player base, or just the the well off enough part of the player base, it's not really a big deal. For those who have a bit more of a struggle to play the game, it's quite a blow. And I kind of hope that FFG do something to make sure that stock is available for those players, so that they can actually get the packs, in a just if they were planning to get one a month or one every 6 weeks, as is the kind of the standard release schedule, that those players can do that without too much problem. So yeah, it's, as I said, I mean, as an enthusiast of the game, it's very, very exciting, because it really does open the game up an awful lot more, and it gives us a huge amount to kind of go through and strategize about. But there are some costs with regards to certain certain sectors of the player base that I just hope FFG are sensitive to and take steps to accommodate. That would be
that's
really
an interesting point about the sort of stock management issue. And does anyone know, have they heard much about there being any issues with core sets and people not getting enough and places selling out and even people wanting more? Because it seems to have been managed pretty well from what I've seen.
Yeah,
They're
I
starting
don't know. Owen?
They're starting to run low in some places. I'm not sure if FFG are sold out yet, but I think they might be. Distributors still have some stock, but it is not. I think we'll start to see shortages in maybe a few weeks, depending on if it got a big bump. Like, for example, an event caught fire. If they don't have stock to pick it up, we could see a little bit of complaint and issues. Like, for example, if it got picked up on foot of something that they're going to be at PAX running a big tournament, if there was a lot of hype generated off that, you might find, actually we've kind of, a load of the available stock is hoovered up. I think anyone who is into it, super committed, has gotten their 3 boxes at this stage and are reasonably happy. But I think people who haven't yet, well, if you're, don't wait too long. Get super, if you're going to get super disappointed,
Yeah.
The other thing is, I was thinking really hard about why they've done this, because your mind immediately goes to, why are they doing this? This is a break from previous traditions, and they didn't explain why they did it. Normally, they give a big explanation. This is why we're doing this thing, which is communication is excellent. I think there was a big factor of, we want the meta to be a bit broader. We don't want this 6-month very stale meta where there aren't a lot of deck choices. I think that was a big factor in their decision. I think the other thing is that financial reasons could mean that they want to post big end-of-year results. And apparently, according to a number of sources, that basically 70% of the players who buy 1 core set or 3 core sets don't purchase another Dynasty pack or another chapter pack equivalent. They purchase the deluxe expansions, but they don't purchase the chapter packs.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a slightly
Yeah.
behavior.
Well, it's people who don't see it as a CCG, who see it instead as a board game. And they buy the board game, and then every few months, hey, there's a new board game expansion, I'll get that. They don't go in every month and pick up a chapter pack. So I think they may have looked at that internally and said, okay, while this model is great that we're working in terms of somebody who's going in there and drops $15 every month, this model isn't actually translating into kind of any significant amount of money for us. It means that we have to make all our money on the core sets, which means that the core sets, they have to do 3 core sets, they have to do, they have to make their money there, and that kind of primes the pump for the rest of the game. And then the game is basically has a tapering sales since then, which just means that the game has a finite lifespan because people atrophy off, and you need a way to reload them back in and sell them a new product and make money. I mean, companies have to make money for their stuff, or they won't bother producing the product. Yeah. And I want them making money on Alpha 4. And
the thing is,
that's a factor there for a huge factor for them.
Like I've seen this happen in the video games industry when you make an injection of content, players tend to consume it as that we'll consume it all immediately. And will sort of be craving more in a less amount of time than it would have usually have taken. Like probably in, I don't know, it was supposed to be 6 packs over 6 months, was it?
Yeah.
Or 3 months? 6 months?
Yeah.
We'll be wanting new cards in 3 months' time. So you're going to consume this 6 packs in half the time, and you're going to be asking for more in half the time. So, and then what do? Do they release just 1 pack then at that stage? Do they start releasing double packs? Is it the deluxe stuff that comes? Like, they're putting themselves in sort of a content treadmill that they don't want to be in, I would say, which I have seen before, and it does cause a lot of stress.
So something else, which I mean, I thought was kind of interesting, and to your point, it kind of supports, I guess, what you're saying about how people buy deluxe expansions. Is that deluxe expansions are a mechanism for getting a big chunk of cards into the game in one go, and given that they have that as an option, they didn't take it. They still want to do it as 6 dynasty packs. Seemed a little bit strange. Do you think I suppose maybe for Baz, think that was odd? And I guess B, do you think that hints at they have a very specific plan for what they want to do with Dynasty Pack or with Deluxe Packs, potentially with other clans or maybe some really strong themes?
No, not necessarily. The fact that they have pushed these out into the 6 in 6 weeks, to me, says more that they had a big success on their hands and they wanted to shake things up. The fact that it was kind of so late in before we found out that this was going to happen makes me think that this was a change from what was originally planned. I have to admit, when it came out, I was a little disappointed or alarmed that I was going to have to put down so much money so soon. It wasn't something I'd factored in. And I think compared to some of the other podcasts, we're kind of lucky that we've actually had these 2 weeks to kind of let it mull over, because while a lot of people were understandably angry and frustrated about it initially, I think if you kind of look on the community at the moment, that has kind of simmered and boiled away. People are more looking forward to the cards. Just in relation to the kind of how they're looking to do with the kind of casual versus competitive, the fact that they've released these so quickly does to me say that they are interested in getting the competitive scene up to scratch quickly. It also is actually really beneficial for the factions. It isn't something they really had to care about as much. So for Netrunner, if they suddenly brought out a bunch of cards that really boosted Jinteki, especially in the first few packs, it didn't make much of a difference. Jinteki got to have some fun and no one was really upset because there wasn't so much clan loyalty. But if in the first tiers of Amaterasu, K-Day turned out to be completely busted and Phoenix just went mental for a month in all the tournaments, that would be a problem with this particular setup. So I think once you've got an established base, you can then start releasing the packs without having as much an impact. So I think this is just to kind of establish a good card pool and card base. For the casual players, I'm more interested to see what happens with the big box expansions. I have high hopes for what they might do. The Netrunner Terminal Directive didn't work out as well as it should have, but it shows that they were willing to kind of shake things up and make efforts to have more story-driven box sets that were focused on you getting your core sets and you getting this expansion and having a almost complete kind of board game that you could work with from there. And hopefully that's what they'll go for the casual players and, well, all of us, because that sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Rather than the kind of Netrunner model where it was really just a big dump of cards, getting as many cards into the pool as you could for the competitive players. So I think they've dropped the ball a little on communication. They haven't really told us what they're doing, why they're doing it. They haven't told us what's happening next. We don't know if there's going to be a 3 or 4 month gap before we see more cards. And bits like that. I think Alex Watkins did a good job of kind of stepping in quickly after the announcement and, just talking about how the evolution of the meta at the early stage can become quite stagnant, and how, even though he wasn't involved in it, because he's just one of the organized play, that he sees it as being a really good thing to come in. So yeah, I think FFG maybe could have done a bit of a better job to get the message out, but I'm not upset with what they're doing. They seem to be making good moves. and we just need to maybe let them work through whatever they've got on their plates at the moment to tell us all the good things due to come.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
there was... Sorry.
Okay, but there is clear a disruption of some sort clearly did take place, because this 6-packs in 6 weeks does not jive at all with their 3-month release plan, because the initial first month was supposed to be people playing with single core. Then the next month was going to be people with 2 core or maybe 3 core playing fairly casually. And then the third month was going to be people playing 3 core with basically at a competitive level or in a competitive style tournament. And this basically drops right in the middle of the second month and blows everything up. So again, we don't know what the motivation is. We don't know exactly why it is. It could be that they have taken a look at the logistics of releasing a pack every month and decided it could be more profitable and honestly better for the game to release a single dump of cards every 3 months, more like a CCG model, finding a hybrid between that and the LCG model, where the environment is, because one of the things certainly that I found actually quite unsatisfying about playing about the old LCG model, or the kind of the standard LCG model, was the constant drip, the constant minor changes. So you never felt like it was, because the influx of cards was so small. Generally, I mean not always, but generally, the solving decks or creating new decks or anything like that, there wasn't a huge amount to do in that regard. It was very, very rare that a card or several cards would come out and completely revolutionize a faction and produce a whole new style of playing the game, where that is much more easily achievable when you have a much larger injection of cards. So they may be dry running a change in their distribution model. Who knows? But yeah, it's very, very peculiar. It's very, very peculiar.
Yeah.
But for all that,
I just want to make
go ahead.
There was a couple of quite good comments in chat. I just want to drop in, and then I'll hand back to Eoin, one was that Jim from Patriot Games, who would know, our retail expert in chat, that there's often a drop off after pack 3 in LCGs for them. So that might be a reason to sort of try and at least get that first cycle in tighter. And Blue Sapphire also pointing out that the whole cycle is going to have been play tested as a block, and having these sort of incremental releases kind of shifts that, rather than getting it out in a sort of tighter thing, gets it out the way it's kind of maybe intended to be. And also Travis from Winter Court podcast was pointing out that deluxes are evergreen and cycles aren't, which is kind of poo-pooing my point about releasing it as a deluxe instead. And you had something you wanted to jump in on.
Yeah, mostly what Justin was going to say. I think they're considering, hang on, this chapter pack model isn't actually working for us. It's not translating into cards going into people's hands, and I think they're looking to reevaluate it and said, hang on, if we just threw this idea out and said, right, we're going to do 2 different maybe models of deluxe. One deluxe, which is kind of a story basically thing, where maybe there's a story pack, a little like the Terminal Directive, going, here's a bunch of changes you make, and there's some legal cards, and there's some storyline stuff to have a look at. Maybe there's a new faction, maybe there's something else, and then do basically here's a card block set, bam. Because you can vary the size of that deluxe a little bit more than you can the chapter packs, because the chapter packs they make choices about how many factions you can have in the game. And if they wanted to follow classic L5R, there's an argument for kind of 3 to 4 new factions pretty quick. Now, you may decide, no, that's a terrible idea, Owen, keep the focus on the clans. Don't go diluting in a bunch. Don't open the floodgates to every, Tom, Dick, and Ronan in, bring them in. But if they wanted to do kind of, whatever, want to do whatever, they can go, right, well, here's one of the deluxes, which is a new faction, mostly cards for that new faction, and then we do another big box set, and this new box set is all the cards for everybody. Whereas once you start mucking around with the Dynasty Pack model, you can't really go, okay, let's throw an additional 3 cards in there for Naga or something, or 3 cards in there for Mantis. You'll have to take cards of somebody else, and I think they might have decided, hang on, this isn't working for us, I think they reconsidered, and they reconsidered on relatively short notice and made a decision and fired off on it. And there's big questions about how this is going to play downfield, as we were saying. Does this mean no new cards until January. Does this mean no new cards until April? I think it'd be crazy to have no new cards till April. I think it's quite likely there'll be new cards in January.
But the thing is, like, how would you want to chop and change the environment during the Kotai season? Is that fair?
Yeah.
If the Kotai season is long enough, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's no harm there at all. I mean, you look at the format, there will be, I would say, if it dropped late January, it would mean you had 3 Kotais before it, and then you'd have probably 3 to 5 Kotais after it, depending on where everything shakes out, and then it depends on the reschedule after that.
So are you talking about a big drop of that, or one of the kind of gradual monthly drops? Because I think if you had monthly releases, you could do a lot more damage with 1 or 2 small cards than you would if you're having a big block of cards that suddenly became legal. As was said, they test them in blocks.
Absolutely. I think they're looking at it in terms of sales, and it's probably easier to keep 1 big SKU in print than 6 little SKUs. And I think it's also like, let's say, like, you had the Jackson Howard issue in Netrunner where you couldn't get that pack for nearly a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's like basically you can't play the game more or less because you can't get this pack. And I think that was really harsh on people.
But that's actually a good example of maybe why, not from a store perspective, but from a player perspective, why you should still have the packs, because players were able to go out and buy just that pack rather than having to get the big box with everything in it.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that might be good for players, but it's bad for companies. Companies want you to give them their money, they want you to they want your money.
In the most efficient way as well.
It's like listening to this podcast is like an MBA course.
Yeah. So no, I mean, but the thing is, look, there seem to be an awful lot of small factors that individually point toward a change in distribution model. That would be the best guess at this stage. In terms of, I think it serves the community more because it provides more excitement. A single big release gives you much more marketing opportunity, whereas small releases really don't, because very, very quickly people will tune out the constant drone of like, here's what's coming, here's what's coming, here's what's coming. Whereas if it's every 3 months, then you can hype it up and get people excited, and people will give you their money, and you're happy. So
it might be cheaper for players as well if they're getting a big box rather than getting the 6. You're cutting down on SKUs and patching. Yeah, good for the environment. I mean,
good for the environment, but there are a bunch of reasons to think that this would be a good move. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose we'll find out. We'll have to wait and see. But as I said, for me, I'm very excited. I'm very glad they're doing it. Some people will not be, obviously, and I have sincere sympathy for those people, because there's nothing worse than being really excited about something and then having someone on no notice going, actually, no, you don't get to have it.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, if FFG wanted to change the LCG model, it's not like we can go back to the guys who originally created the LCG model and complain to them.
I did see 2 things that were good. I saw a lot of the shops locally, certainly, and online, offering people pre-order deals where you basically effectively book your 6 packs, and you pay a certain amount of money now, and you pay more money later, and you can basically order them as a 6-pack with a discount. So it's good to see the shops are at least trying to help out a little bit and keep people playing, keep people easing into it. The other thing I took was interesting was that FFG, in a short period of time, have announced the new Netrunner Deluxe. They announced the Elfavor 6-pack. They announced Star Wars Destiny new set and the Star Wars Destiny draft packs. So I definitely feel like, for whatever reason, they want to get their financial numbers up towards the end of the year.
Or maybe they're switching printers.
Well, they might be. But, I think they want their financials up for whatever reason.
Are they a public company?
Their year also may run to March, which is pretty typical.
They're owned by Asmodee, and Asmodee are owned. I think it's the majority of Asmodee is owned by a venture capital fund.
Okay, but they're still it's still not a public company, so I mean their quarterly financials don't need to be released, so no one's really gonna No one's going to overly scrutinize them.
They need to get their financials in order for when Twilight Imperium 4th edition comes out, because that was a work of love by all regards. That is just complete madness, and probably will make them no money whatsoever. So,
Okay, Colad Informant points out in chat that the casual feel this could be a problem. Like for casual players, it could actually be a problem to drop all 6-packs at once. So basically, to make an expansion out of it, and that is also a concern. But if it is a change in policy, if it is a change in distribution policy by FFG, then you can be pretty sure that they've done their due diligence and have determined that they will not be losing any money by changing things.
So
but they might be losing players.
If you're a casual
They might be losing players, but
if you're a casual player,
business.
What I want to see is I want you to see you pick up 3 of the core sets, which is going to be pretty steep buy-in, and then pick up your big box expansion, and then have a complete game that you and a friend can play through, maybe with some sort of campaign element or kind of some story parts. The idea that casual players need to keep up with the Dynasty packs coming out every week or every month is crazy. If a player wants to be completely competitive, are they really casual? I mean, if someone insists on collecting all the cards, I would consider them competitive. They might be competitive and bad like me, but they're still competitive because they're putting the effort in to get all of the packs.
You're a completionist.
You're a tournament winner, man.
Some people enjoy collecting the cards purely for the joy of collecting the cards as well. There is a significant section there that.
But I think that I'm just looking at one of the Arkham Horror packs here, and I think Arkham Horror is a wonderful example where the design for it is you get your 2 core sets, which is what you need to complete your core set. You get your big box expansion, and then you get your cycle. And that is a complete self-contained game. And if you want to get another cycle, another big box expansion, that's something else again. But I think doing it in this kind of board game block is really the way to go for the casual players, because no matter how hard you try to make the larger game accessible, there's a threshold point where you just can no longer catch up. Like, good luck getting into Netrunner. Even with the new expansion or with the new core set, you still have a massive amount to get. And really what you should be doing is waiting for the next Terminal Directive, because Terminal Directive didn't work out too well, or just play the new core set with your mates, because that's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic casual game. But the idea that we need that a casual player needs to be able to keep up with all cards at all times, it's wrong.
Yeah. But that's sorry, but that's another Baz. If you are a player trying to get into a game and you have to hunt down 12 or 18 different releases, that in itself represents a huge barrier to entry.
Yeah,
it's a huge amount of hassle to try and find all those. Whereas if all of those are consolidated into 3 large releases, that's not a barrier to entry. I mean, money notwithstanding, obviously, but you can just go, right, I'll get this, and this, bang, I'm up to date. So that could be another consideration.
I think maybe they could improve the resale by maybe having different levels of rarities. I joke.
It's a question between how many players do you lose by having a more aggressive release schedule with bigger blocks of money and possibly more frequently, versus how many players you get or retain by having a vibrant meta. Long tranches of time with no new cards is not good for most card games, unless that card game happens to be incredibly finely tuned and balanced, and people can enjoy playing it, like especially in a faction-based one. Let's say Unicorn at the moment are a little bit weak. Unicorn players are going to want to get out of the second meta. They don't want to spend a year here,
Yeah.
They will want to get a new pool of cards, have some different deck building options, and try and find angles of play that are currently unavailable because the card pool is relatively narrow. They can't double down any more in a military than they currently can. But if you give new options, maybe they can go deeper on it. Maybe they can get some play there, But at the moment, they're kind of stuck. It's not that they're ridiculously weaker; it's that they're a little bit weaker, and in this game, a little bit matters a lot.
Yeah,
and
it commands.
For the company as a whole, like FFG has a lot of different games, a lot of different products, and they cater to different player types. Like if you look at the Battle of Rokugan board game that they're starting to preview, it's strange in modern board games in that it's not full of miniatures everywhere, compared to Twilight Imperium as an example. It's catered to a different price range, a different set of players, and they can certainly choose to take the L5R LCG one direction for one specific set of players, and although it'll lose players from this game, there's plenty of other games that they can play with.
I was gonna keep going, but we've been 40 minutes on this topic, so I think we could probably
let's move on.
Go 40 more, and I'm just gonna say no.
We're excited for the future. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's all thumbs up, I think, from us. That's the final conclusion. We love cards. More cards is good.
Yeah. So, Owen you want to talk about templating briefly?
Oh man, this will be fun. This isn't definite because I'm talking about now a card that we've seen a preview of and an actual printed card. And the two cards in question are Crisis Breaker and Kikita Asami. Now, Kikita Asami is in the core set, and her action is, well, this character is participating in a political conflict. If you count more current political skill in the conflict than your opponent, take one honor from that opponent. Okay? So basically, if you have more political skill, you can, in the current conflict, you can steal an honor off them. Fine. Nice, straightforward. Crisis Breaker is one of the cards in the new pack. It is keeper only. It is a personality 3/1 for 3, 3/1/1 for 3, crab plant personality, Bushi Berserker. Action. During a military conflict, if your opponent counts more current military skill than you, choose a Berserker character you control, ready that character, and move it to the conflict. Now, the difficulty here is that refers to more current military skill, not more current military skill in the current conflict. Now, the rules don't cover people having more military skill or different skill numbers outside of the conflict. They only refer to calculating skill during the conflict. So that's one little barrier here. Those cards work mechanically very differently because that Crisis Breaker probably, the way he may be intended to work is intended to work exactly like Kikita Asami, or he may be intended to work differently. But a very small difference in wording like that changes his effect a lot. Because what he currently, so we think does, is he cares about, right, you've got 2 military skill in the conflict, I have 3, but you have 5 at home, and I have 2 at home. So that's 5 plus 2, you have a total of 7, and I have a total of 3 plus 2 is 5, so I can move the Crisis Breaker in, even though I'm currently winning. So little changes there can have incredibly significant differences in play, and may work differently depending on kind of how you think it works. So I don't know. Was that intended or not? Was he intended to count a different number than Kikita Asami is? But it's something that's cropped up occasionally an issue in their game where they have a tendency to do a little more natural language with their cards, which makes them easier to read and slightly more intuitive to people, but means that it can actually have, in the nitty-gritty of rules analysis, it can make a big difference. So that card may work differently because there's 2 words missing from it. And that's an issue. Templating is really boring, but it's really important. It's like brushing your teeth. It's never fun, but it is actually important for you.
Fair enough. I think that's anyone else have any opinions to weigh in?
I can just agree with Owen. It's just
you won't find any disagreements here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think the designers are doing a great job.
Devil's advocate.
Everything's working as intended. There's no problems to see whatsoever.
Nothing to see here, folks. Move on.
It is hard to know. It is hard to know. But I like you can also look at the Lion and Crane champions and wonder whether the current ruling of they don't really work on the fence was intended, or if it was bad templating again. So. I definitely see where Owen's coming from on it.
All right. So Baz, maybe while you're on, you wrote a piece on there was a big tournament in Athens. I can't remember how many players it was, but it was
90.
90
Wow.
players.
So one of the biggest tournaments we've seen, and certainly the biggest since Gen Con, I guess. And you did a little bit of just looking at what the top decks were, what people were splashing, and what the little sort of mini meta we saw from that was. What was the sort of headlines from that?
So Chris had actually done all the hard work for me, and I just pulled out his posts off one of the Facebook channels. The Greek guys had done a great job of actually getting those deck lists out there and making sure they're easy to access. Crab busted. I mean, winning everything. High hopes, Owen. No pressure. But shockingly, the crab. Shockingly, the crab deck that did so well. Personally, I thought I was completely shocked by it. It was a very different playstyle than I think we were expecting or used to. It wasn't the majorly defensive, slowly dishonor you down, get board control, and then take a couple of provinces. Instead, it was a super aggressive crab deck splashing lion. And its second place opponent, the crane deck, was, again, it looks like it was a very, very aggressive deck. So there was an environment. The Greek guys even went so far as to say that it was a pretty casual, fun tournament for themselves. So maybe don't read too much into it. But looking through the decks, I think it's pretty clear that whatever meta you think you have, whatever environment you think is out there, there are other players doing other things that you haven't expected yet. A lot of the decks are still quite similar across the board, especially as we're seeing the 5 Rings DB get a little bit more active, and people posting decks, especially on the Dynasty side, because there really isn't much scope for room. But I think some of the descriptions and what people are saying, how they're playing it, there are marked differences in the approaches that people are taking. Just looking through some of the numbers, the ones that really come out to me, Shameful Display is the Void province of choice. Rally to the Cause had 4 out of 7, and no one was playing Elemental Fury, which I was a bit surprised by. All but the Crane ran their clan province. Imperial Storehouse was pretty much everywhere. Everyone had at least 2, with 5 of the top of clans running 3. Assassinations were pretty much 2 across the board, except for Lion and Unicorn. 3 Bonsais in everything except Scorpion and Phoenix, who ran 2. All decks ran court games. So, I mean, these aren't really shocks. These are the kind of things we were expecting, but it's good to see it coming out. At least 2 Fine Katana and 2 Ornate Fans across the board. Except for the Unicorn, who presumably were focusing a little bit more on military. It's interesting to see it, just to kind of get a better idea of what's going on out there. From watching what people are talking about on the different communities, I've pretty much heard every clan except Unicorn being said by someone as being the deck to beat, that this clan is over and above the best. Right now, I think there is still a decent element of player skill and player experience in there that's kind of making a mess of people's estimations. Now, there are a bundle of things that you can certainly see, especially if you look at that big table of played games that's out there. It's interesting to look through, but obviously you have to be a little bit concerned by the data. But you can see that Crane and Scorpion are up there, so you obviously need to be worried about that. Those action cancels. Dragon are doing extremely well from what I can see. Because of that, I think Muramoto's Fury is probably a good option, rather than Let Go. I know Let Go helps in a lot of cases, but I don't think it's for against Dragon. Line have surprised me. Line have been doing a lot of had a lot of success in a lot of the environments, and they just seem quite solid, especially because the people are playing Muramoto's Fury, then the Ready for Battles are better. It seems a big circle, like it, depending on what decks are dominant in the environment, the reactions that people play, and how the kind of splash is limited to so many cards. I mean, I don't think you can. I honestly don't think you can. you can nail it down to one or even two clans for Worlds. I think there's going to be a lot of player skill, a lot of interactions on what decks are prominent, what you hit, and how you go through it. So
yeah. So I guess that leads us on to Worlds. Justin, have you kind of any predictions of what sort of trends we might see? Any sort of cards that might be defining the World's meta or clan or deck types?
Actually, we've just been discussing it in chat very, very briefly. Yeah, Travis says, and I agree, I think Crane is the strongest clan at the moment. They have an incredibly balanced overall. Actually, we were talking about this even a couple of months ago. They have an incredibly balanced overall attack. They have some of the outright most powerful personalities in the game. They have action denial with Voice of Honor. They just have all the tools it's okay. So they have powerful tools that are consistent, self-reinforcing, alongside a host of very efficient and very powerful characters. So for me, I think Crane is actually the strongest faction in the game at the moment. I think they have tools to cover every situation, and I think they ask so many questions of so many decks that for me they're the best. Slightly under that, I think that I think there's a pool under that I would put Dragon, Lion, Phoenix, and Scorpion, and Crab. I would put Crane at the top, then the next 5 clans, and then Unicorn would be tier 3. But yeah, as I said, for me, Crane is the top clan. The next 5 are all have their strengths and weaknesses, and then Unicorn still not. I mean, Unicorn isn't rubbish by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it has more significant weaknesses than other clans. And in this game, small weaknesses compound overturns, and they turn into big weaknesses at a certain point, and that's when you lose. So in terms of meta-defining cards, out of Crane, for me, I think Crane Lion Splash is the premier aggressive deck of the environment. They have, not only do they have counterspells with Voice of Honor, they also have Ready for Battle, which is a pseudo counterspell for some of the most powerful actions in the game, which are bow actions. So they are able to implement an aggressive strategy, knowing that they have a lot of answers to the answers. They can overrule the answers. And that's what makes them really, really quite powerful. I mean, there's an argument as well for, I think, Crane Scorpion maybe, which gives you 6 cancels, gives you Forged Edict as well. That could work. I think Lion offers slightly more, but for me anyway, Crane is the top clan at the moment. As I said, next 5. Much of a muchness, and then Unicorn slightly under those. In terms of meta-defining cards, I still think Display of Power has to be accounted for. If Crane and Scorpion are seeing a lot of play, then Display of Power is an awful lot worse, because countering Display of Power is a huge blowout. But if Display of Power is not countered, Display of Power is a huge blowout and can.
Or if you are Crane. If you are Crane or Scorpion, counter to counter.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, Display of Power can win you the game on turn 1.
Yeah.
It can put someone so far behind that the game is over effectively on game 1 or on turn 1. So, anyway, that would be my estimation.
Andy, any thoughts from you? What you like?
Justin's kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of clan. Anyway, I think Crane are super powerful. Like, just even looking at their splashable cards, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. I think
admit defeat.
Defeat is oh my god, it's a really nice card. I think there's been some chatter in the chat as well about Lion and the particular strategy of like Lion's Pride Brawler, Charge, and For Greater Glory. There is something inherently kind of broken about Lion's economy. They're being able to put tons of fate on your people and have them stick around for a really long time. There is something that is there. How often that's going to actually pay dividends? Don't give me that look. I know. I still think.
It's a good card for bad players, Andy. It's a good card for
I'm a bad player. I'm a bad player.
Yeah.
I think it is a trick to get more economy. It's always going to have a certain power. It's how you can capitalize it and whether the situation to capitalize it occurs frequently enough at the right times. But that can be a card. I think you'll the chatter in the chat is that you'll probably see 1 or 2 lines coming into the top cut on the back of that strategy or off the back of that strategy. I think that's probably true. I mean, I think also there is a certain element of, I think Dragon have some of the most powerful cards. Like Indomitable Will is really, really nice. And obviously they have, Miramoto's Fury.
Let go,
which is,
Miramoto's Fury.
Yeah, they've got some
Wandering,
powerful cards.
Tattooed Wanderer.
Tattooed Wanderer. Yeah. They've got some very powerful cards. Very, very nice stuff. So interesting to see if they're going to be bidding 5 a lot, or if they're going to be bidding high, I guess, for their card draw. They needed to fuel the deck in terms of attachments. It'd be interesting to see if John Butler's always bid 1 strategy is going to be able to knock a few of them down.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me as well is that some of the very straightforward, like there are 2 kind of tricksy clans, which are the Phoenix and Scorpion. And in my experience so far, they have very strong matchups against the Blunt Force Trauma clans, which are the Lion and the Dragon. They are just it's just, Lion and Dragon are very, very straightforward. And Scorpion and Phoenix just have the abilities to sidestep them at some stage and deliver a really crushing tempo blow that those decks then find it very hard to recover from. But at the same time, I find Phoenix very, very prone to Crane. I think Crane's an incredibly hard match for Phoenix. But anyway, neither here nor there. I think, as I said, for Crane, I think is the top. In the next 5, I think they all have. I think they have strong and weak matchups. I think Phoenix is actually quite prone to Crab, or can have a very tough time against Crab. But yeah, I don't know. Also bearing in mind, as Baz was saying, each person's individual meta is going to be completely different to everybody else's meta. And bizarrely, in New 5R, playstyle, I think, is even more of a determining factor. Like, player personality is even more of a determining factor in how a deck is played than it was in old 5R, which is going to have some really significant effects on how the game develops and how people do. So
Travis saying in chat that most, if not all, top players will bid 5 turn 1. Oh, and is that your intention?
No, but the thing is, right, you've got to be able to structure your deck so that you can survive that first turn. If you can survive the first turn, you're in a much stronger position.
Yeah.
Because the variance starts to slide right down. I'm looking at ways to survive the turn better. I'm not super high on Miramoto's Fury for that reason, because I think if you're bidding 1 and your opponent's bidding 5, and they've decided that Miramoto's Fury is the thing that stops them, they're probably going to be influencing your Lion. So they've got a good chance of having an answer for it. So you might be better off just turtling up a little bit and going, okay, first turn, come at me. I'll make 2 or 3 guys to defend with, and I will get through turn 1. And then I will start playing the game. I think if you can manage that, and the problem is, at least initially, there's not a huge amount of cards that are useful, super useful for the defense, that aren't also useful for the attack, which is a good and bad thing. And you'll see less cards anyway, so it's interesting. I think it can be done. I think you can. Like, I worry really with a bid 5 strategy about making somebody like Asada turn 1, which is normally quite a strong play, but I worry it leaves you a bit too open to getting hit really hard by a flow of guys and losing 2 provinces, or at least maybe losing 1 province and being a little bit behind. So it's tough. I think it's I think you'll have to figure out how bad it gets when someone bids 5. I think sometimes someone will bid 5, get a string of great cards, get the perfect thing, get like one bonsai, get everything that they want, and I think he'll be put in a really tough spot. And I think in other games they'll bid 5 and they won't get everything they want, and you'll hold them up a bit, and then the game will start to turn in your favor. So I mean, because if you bid 5 and you go down to say 6 or 7, and I mean, you're gonna have to think really hard about playing that assassination. Hey, it might be worth it, but you're playing high risk then. You're playing really high risk.
Yeah, a couple of ring errors and you're in real trouble.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't close out the game that fast. You can maybe you go amazing. You go, okay, cool. I played assassination. I bid 5, and I'm at 4 honor now, and I took 2 of his provinces. Well, if you don't take 2 of his provinces next turn, which can be a hell of a lot harder, you're in trouble. You're in serious trouble. So I don't know. I don't know that all top players are going to bid 5 turn 1. I think it's dangerous to make a prediction like that for a number of reasons. Because it's self-reinforcing. Because if everyone bids 5, everyone bids 5. And then everyone bids 5.
Maybe that's...
If we're bidding 1, like it can... It's going to be tricky. I don't have a definitive answer yet. We need to see a big tournament, see how it works out. We need to get some reports from people and see how they did. Additionally, some of the clans are a little bit better than others, and that's a factor. I put Crane up there. I put Scorpion up there, I think, as well. And I put Dragon up there because Dragon are so flexible. And that's why I don't like the Crane Scorpion Splash, because I think the Crane Scorpion Splash is a tough time with Dragon. Because they can get into situations like, I have got 2 counter spells in hand. Awesome. And my opponent places 3 cards down, each of which is an attachment. And you sit there kind of going, I have nothing to cancel here. And that can be a very tough spot for people. So I think Crane's best splash at the moment is Lion. Just because, hey, this gives us a lot of tools to be aggressive and have counters to the common defenses. So that's all good.
All
and
right.
just quickly to note that the splash for the Athens deck was Phoenix for Crane. So the second place Crane was Phoenix, which adds 3 possible Crane ways that you can go from just this conversation.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that splash, by the way. I absolutely love that deck and the play style it had.
Yeah, but I mean, that just goes to show the inherent strength of the Crane cards.
Yeah.
I mean, certain clans, like if playing Phoenix, you are, I mean, in my opinion, again, you're playing Dragon Splash because you have to. But Crane can just go. Crane have many more directions they can go based on the strength of their core set cards.
I suspect the Crane is a little bit weak to Dragon, because the Dragon strategy of just playing a buttload of attachments, it doesn't care about Guest of Honor. It doesn't care about Voice of Honor. It's playing into a complete different...
Neaten Master, I think, is the real problem. A Neaten Master is hugely destructive. But outside that, I still feel that Crane they'll be taking 2 provinces a turn. They're more than capable of doing it. And Crane is a clan that will bid 5 almost every turn, because they will be gambling on just being able to beat you to death before you can dishonor them out. So but that said, I know the point is absolutely valid that the drag does represent some problems. Certainly in the games that I've seen. But for me, Crane is still just super, super strong.
And I mean, I would worry if that's because you've been playing Phoenix and having those big impact, expensive actions being cancelled is pretty nightmarish. No, from a few.
No, it's
okay. I understand.
Yeah, it's more across the board. Yeah, we won't get into it. It's but just like they have so many of their characters are so powerful. Like you've got Voice of Honor, you've got Honor Deck be powerful against certain clans. You've got the for God's sake, the 3/3 that harpoons people. Mine's gone blank. Jody Challenger, who is one of the most destructive personalities in the game. My God, how is that a non-unique? I mean, whatever about Heroway, and Heroway is also one of the most destructive personalities in the game. But you have not known terror until you've seen 2 or 3 challengers across the table from you. That's like the game is over at that point. You're just done. So anyway, neither here nor there. So,
all right, I'm gonna move along, trying to keep as close to on time because being on time has actually already failed miserably. And I think maybe we'll look at Justin's deck, your Phoenix deck that we have here.
Yeah, still a work in progress and still being kind of tweaked and messed around with. But and also I sort of gave up, and as soon as the six pack we kind of I was like, well, that's it. No point in trying to make this better anymore.
All right. Well, I'm sure there's people who've got Imperial Summons events and who'd be interested to have a sort of deck list to work from.
We can go through it anyway and discuss it. So the fundamental, like the basic strategy of the deck, or where the deck came from, was taking a look at what Phoenix were actually initially really bad at. What Phoenix are really, really bad at is having good stats on their characters and being on the front foot at the start of the game. Phoenix are almost always on the back foot at the start of the game. And so because of that, you're really you can't compete with other aggressive decks. You just can't. So you are compelled to play either Dishonor, which I'm not a huge fan of personally, because as soon as you sniff out the fact that a deck is a dedicated Dishonor deck, that makes their job much, much harder, because you all of a sudden start prioritizing and playing in a completely different way. So the other value, so if you're not going Dishonor, which is still a perfectly fine deck, but this deck went in a different direction, which is the value direction. So yay Phoenix value. So this deck has a really high win rate, but it also takes a really, really long time to win a game. So if you're playing it competitively, you better have mental fortitude, and you better learn to love tiebreakers, because that's where a lot of these games are going, unfortunately, at the moment. Anyway, we'll go through it. The Dynasty deck more or less picks itself. So we'll start with the holdings. 3 Imperial Storehouse, 3 Forgotten Library. Phoenix thrive on cards, and it's an angle that they can attack other decks from. You can dishonor other decks. You can dishonor other decks simply by bidding low and being able to match their higher bids with your Imperial Storehouses, Forgotten Libraries, Naive Students. So those 6 are really, really strong for me. And they go in. After that, for the characters, the ones that do not make it in are easier to talk about. The Peacemaker doesn't make it in because, despite being a 4/1, for one, the Peacemaker cannot attack, and it's such a huge price to pay for a character. Not being able to initiate a challenge with a character defensively, and Challenger Ring or Snagger Ring is a really big. So he got cut. And the other one is the Serene Warrior, or Shiva Casada, who, despite all his promise, spends most games as a 0/0 in a corner somewhere, feeling really, really sad. Okay, so going through them, the Adept of the Waves is a 2/2 Shigenja for 2/2 Shigenja, which gives, as an action, can give one of your guys covert during a water challenge. Psycho Diplomat honors one. So he's actually is it even worth going through all these guys? We've been through them several times before. I suppose it's worth pointing out. Okay, Shiba Tsukune, who is the best champion in the game, and I might get some stick for that. But the pressure she exerts on the game if she comes out turn 1 is really quite unparalleled, and the game very, very quickly stops being about the game and starts being about Tsukune, because she will completely take over a game if she's left unchallenged on the board. So she is incredibly powerful. The next most interesting, the Solemn Scholar, is
she will do her
hero of
best
today. She will do her best. Yes,
and they are the worst 2 rings. I mean, it's 2 rings, but they're the worst 2 rings. She could do better.
Yeah, they are.
But that's she's devastating.
Like the intro voiceover to any 2-dimensional side fighting game, she will do her best. The Solemn Scholar is one of the secret heroes of the deck. So he's a 1/1 1. So it's the 1/1 Shigenja with 1 glory for 1. And if you have the Earth Ring, he can bow someone. He can bow an attacking character, a character attacking you. He wins games. He is unbelievably strong, and he is again, as I said, the secret hero of the deck. The Radiant Orator is another card worth taking a look at. Again, she is appallingly statted. She is a 1/2 for 3, which is just terrible. But her ability is, because it's a printed ability, she gets around some of the most dangerous personalities in the game, like Honored Guest. She's one of the few things that can actually deal with Honored Guest. If you get her honored, she becomes an offensive wrecking ball. She becomes so hard to deal with because then all of a sudden she's a 3/4 or a 5/6 once you power her up with the stronghold, who is just going to send people home. So all of a sudden you're forced into massively overcommitting against her. So she can be iffy, but she can also be absolutely. She can dominate a board on her own if she's honored.
Her being on the board at all from the other side makes assigning attackers really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And again, one of the big tricks with Phoenix, one of the things you need to get used to very early on is using your strongholds to increase your character's glory before any conflicts, even if you don't have an honored personality. Because like one of the big things of Tsukune is like for glory, if you bow your stronghold to 6, she can't be furied on an attack, which makes her, even more devastating. So anyway, the Dynasty side, apart from that, more or less picks itself.
Yep.
I suppose there's one Atoma courtier in there just because the deck likes courtiers. It's a British Genja deck with a bit of support from the Yojimbo and Shiba Tsukune. The Yojimbo is basically there as a finisher. One of the big finishing cards in the deck is Isawa Atsuko, who is a 4-cost Shigenja 3/3, and during a Void challenge, her action is that she gives all enemy characters or opposing characters -1/-1, and all of your characters +1/+1. So if you're going to break a stronghold, Atsuko is the premier stronghold breaker in the game. She's astounding. And if you've got a Yojimbo to back her up, there's very little your opponent is going to be able to do about it. Very, very little. She can also, it's worth noting she can take her action from outside the battle, but again, with the Yojimbo, you can basically pile an awful lot of stuff onto one thing and be fairly sure that it's going to stick. So those are kind of the main kind of standout characters. What do
you mulligan for? Turn 1, what do you mulligan for?
Depends on the clan. Tsukune turn 1, because turn 1 Tsukune, newsflash. Obviously, except against Crab, where you just put Tsukune to the bottom and kind of, weep quietly to yourself. But again, if Tsukune isn't answered, she takes over the game like no other personality does. So she's what you look for most of the time. Again, it depends very much on the matchup. If you're facing Scorpion, then I will generally look for Forgotten Library. Against Crab, you want cheap people because you want to set up a wall before you buy anybody. You just want to set up a wall of sacrificial Way of the Crab targets before you buy anybody worthwhile. Characters I tend to shove to the bottom. The Meddling Mediator goes to the bottom an awful lot. Way because she's much more powerful in the mid game. You don't want to see her early, and she is tremendously powerful in the mid game. She can really mess people up, and this is actually a theme of Phoenix. Phoenix just make playing against them a real pain in the ass. So yeah. Anyway, onto the conflict.
Well, so then how do you tend to make your characters? How much fate would you normally stick on them? Like with the dragon deck, I tend to make 1 or 2 guys and then put as much fate as I possibly can so they're around the entire game. But I've seen like the line maybe 1, maybe 0, and just churn out guys. Where does Phoenix stick? Okay, so for me, so the mulligan, the 2 cards you're looking for in mulligan at the start of the game, certainly that I'm looking for in mulligan, are Display of Power and Assassination. So how I tend to play this game is if I hit the Assassination, then I will buy one. So I'll buy one big character with a lot of fate on them. And then I will pass. So one of the main strategies as we get further into this is passing as often as you can first in the dynasty phase, because you want to take that fate from people and very slowly grind them down. Yeah. I mean, one of the things the Phoenix are also very denying and removing fate on opposing characters and just basically grinding their board down
like as a form. It's basically just economic warfare over a number of turns. So if you can pass first and get the fate, then you are not. I mean, it's a 2 fate swing. Being able to pass first is a 2 fate swing, and you should be looking to engineer that as much as you possibly. And sometimes it's not possible, but wherever, even if it leaves you slightly behind on the board, often it's worth taking that fate just to deny your opponent the extra resources. Okay, so 3 against the waves. It is it's probably the straight in action in the game because it also has the added utility of being able to bow opposing Chigenja. It makes Togashi Yukuni tremendously sad. I can see an awfully a heavy sigh from Baz. Against the waves is incredible. It's just hugely powerful. Assassination. As Phoenix, I think you actually need to play 3 because you will always be behind at the start of the game. Well, not always, but most of the time at the start of the game. And if you can make your one big guy, pass first, and then you've got one big guy to defend against an attack, or you might have a Mirror Modus Fury to defend against an attack, you can assassinate their other small guy, and you've established board control, fate control. And from that point, it should be very hard for your opponent to break your position down because you're set up for the game at that point. So assassination is very important. It's arguably the most important card to see in your mulligan. If you can.
So just to confirm, a clan champion and assassination first turn. How far we've come in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. How things have changed. Okay, so next is Banzai. You're playing 3 Banzai because it is the best card in the game. It does the most for the least of any card in the game. So you're playing 3. You're playing 3 court games because court games is probably just a notch under Banzai in terms of its utility power. And obviously court games allows you to honor your characters. And one of the other major things you want to be doing is Phoenix. The most important thing, in fact, you want to be doing as Phoenix is honoring your characters. Mm-hmm. If you get it, like the reason you want to do this is that an honored character begets other honored characters. Once you've got one honored character, you can dominate the fire ring because you can basically push through a guaranteed challenge and honor another character, and all of a sudden your board is completely uncontrollable. It's just too big, and you've got too much flexibility with your stronghold and where you're putting a +2/+2 bonus. It just gets crazy. So court games is a big deal in achieving that, in honoring your guys. It's very rare that I'll dishonor an opposing character. Display of power is display of power. If it goes off, it probably wins the game or comes close to it. If it gets countered, it probably loses a game or close to it. So against Crane, against Scorpion, and against clans you think are splashing predominantly Scorpion, Crane much less so. You really need to pick your spots with display. And the thing is, sometimes you need to save up a bit of fate so that you can actually bait out a Voice of Honor or a Forged Edict with display. That's just the way it goes. But the display has complete blowout potential. So it's super powerful, and it's now blocking out the rest of the card list. So
for shame.
I know. For shame. Okay, for shame. The premier courtier event in the game. It targets an opposing character. They can either dishonor the character or they can bow it. Both choices are terrible against Phoenix because once your character is dishonored, then I'm bowing my stronghold to make your character even smaller. Or you're bowing them, which means they may as well not be in the fight at all. So just super efficient, super powerful.
Is that a reason for playing the Otomo as your
yes,
extra?
It is. Just to up the courtier count. The Otomo courtier is actually just terrible and will be going out very, very quickly. But it's the best choice of what's left, in my opinion.
It's your K-Day slot.
Oh no, there are several other K-Day slots like that.
No, you just play one K-Day. That's enough.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so next, Let Go. 2 Let Go, because 3 Mirror Modus Fury. So obviously Let Go is... Phoenix are super susceptible to attachments. They have a really bad time against attachments. So let go, because Phoenix are based around janky abilities and situational play. Anything that interrupts that can actually be really detrimental to your chances of winning. So let go becomes very, 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 very important. Like nothing says it's sad like having Sheppard Tsukune with Cloud the Mind on her, just sitting there being effectively useless. So yeah, let go, super important. Likewise, Mirror Mode is Fury, because you want the game to go long, because Phoenix probably have the best inevitability of any clan in the game. You want to get past the early turns and just get yourself set up and established. And Mirror Mode is Fury keeps your provinces alive. Actually, we should look at the provinces as well in a second. Okay, so next is Supernatural Storm. That's a card that could come in, go out. It's been in and out and a bunch of times.
Only a one-of?
It's a one-of. It's a finisher. Again, if you're looking to break its stronghold, then you go in with you splash all your fate on a big wide board, which has got 4 or 5 Shigenja. You go in with your Yojimbo. You supernatural one of your Shigenja, make them big. Your Atsuko makes everything on your side bigger, everything on their side smaller, and then the Yojimbo just says no, you can't do anything about it. So it's a finisher. This card will be absolutely unbelievable as soon as Phoenix can field a deck of Sheppard Tsukune, Shibi Yojimbo, and Shigenja. But right now, it's just not quite there. But it'll be absolutely incredible very, very soon. Very, very soon. So,
Way of the Phoenix.
After that, we've got Way of the Phoenix. Okay, so this card has gone in a deck. It's been a whole bunch of things like Spies at Court. But Way of the Phoenix is a really asymmetric effect. It's a borderline NPE because you're just telling your opponent, no, you don't get to do this at all. And it can have a huge impact on the game. It functions as an economy card because you can shut someone out of like a ring with 2 fate on it, so you get 2 fate, which is backbreaking. It allows you, like with Tsukune, if you can just say no, you're not getting the fire ring this turn. In fact, no one's getting the fire ring this turn, and then Tsukune resolves it at the end of the turn, becomes enormous, and then at the start of the next turn, Tsukune runs across, wins a conflict, claims the fire ring, and honors another one of your characters, and you're feeling super happy about that. So Way of the Phoenix, it's a situational card with the capacity to become really, really noxious later on. Like once we start to see like ring lockout combos, which are coming again with cards like K-Day, it could be pretty rough. So I think that's all the events anyway. And after that, we're into the attachments. So 3 Cloud the Mind, because Cloud the Mind is amazing. And because Phoenix, again, are fragile and situational, you need answers to big threats that come out against you, because you have to buy time to get yourself set up and just basically put yourself in a position where you're dominating the board. So Cloud the Mind allows you to do that. Flying Katana is Flying Katana. It's not a great card by any stretch, but it's just the best of what's there at the moment. Magnificent, okay, and likewise Ornate Fan. It's not great, but it's the best of what's there at the moment. Magnificent Kimono is a hugely underrated card. It's one of the main ways you get to honor your characters. It's an attachment that also helps you win political conflicts. And again, honoring characters for Phoenix is really the lifeblood of what they do. That's what makes Phoenix that's how Phoenix really win games, is by honoring, or at least that's how this deck wins, at least militarily anyway, by honoring characters. So it's very, very important in that regard. The deck did run Spies in Court, which is kind of a slight combo with this, because traits go off before, or keywords. I'm not sure what they're called in this game. Is it traits or keywords? Anyway, because they go off before reactions to winning. So, like if you had an honored character that was going in, or sorry, if you had a character that was going into a challenge, like you win a political challenge with Magnificent Kimono, you honor first, and then you could play Spies at Court. Which basically removes the honor, but you get the Spies of Court effect. So, which is fine. Like if you have an already honored character and you go in, then Kimono goes off first, you honor, and then Spies of Court would remove the honor. So it's not perfect, but still it gives you a bit of leeway. almost never used on opposing characters. I found even playing Dishonored, the risk is just too high that they somehow pull something out, win the conflict, and all of a sudden you've got an on monster running around on the other side of the table. But it's super, super important, I think, for Phoenix. And then pacifism, which is again kind of an card, but there's just not a lot else that's really, really good. It has been very, very important in certain games. It gives you an answer against certain really big, unpleasant champions like Casada and Tuturi. And can also be used for sneakily pushing through unopposed military conflicts later in the game. So so the deck really just looks to grind the game out. One thing about Phoenix I found as well is that if Phoenix get ahead, you are in a world of trouble, because no clan is harder to come back on than Phoenix. Like there is a reason Phoenix start behind in most games, because once they get ahead, they're incredibly hard to reverse tempo on. So yeah, I mean the most crushing games I've had, the most crushing games of 5 rings that I've seen have involved Phoenix just getting a really good start and literally steamrolling an opponent with nothing they could do. So yeah, and that's it. That almost never happens though. Most of the time you're in it for a long, long grind.
And quick word on provinces.
Oh, provinces, yeah. Okay, so you're playing Secret of Void. So you are obviously playing Shameful Display and Kuroi Mori. You're playing Shameful Display because it's the best province in the game. You're playing Kuroi Mori because it's very, very good. Once Phoenix lose Secret of Void, then it is Kuroi Mori that will be going away and Shameful Display that will be staying. Because again, honoring and dishonoring is powerful for Phoenix, and in Phoenix, Shameful is just. I can't, certainly while this stronghold is around, I just can't see Phoenix not playing this ever. So Kuroi Mori, also very good. Again, another Void province, you get a fate whenever it flips up. And that's one of the things about the provinces, because entrenched position goes under your stronghold. So 3 of your 4 provinces will give you fate when flipped. That's Manicured, Kuroi Mori, and Shameful Display, which helps sets you up for Miramoto's Fury and or Display of Power. So that's worth bearing in mind. And the other one is Meditations on the Tau, which basically, again, is just another way of waging economic warfare on your opponent by removing fate from their characters. So that is it. It is a grinder deck. And as I said, I mean, the win rate for this deck is very, very high, very, very high. But it just takes a long time to win games. So as for its viability in a tournament setting, I'm not so sure. But there you go.
And we still don't know what the tiebreakers are going to be. That is still due to be announced any second. Presumably as soon as this video goes out.
As is traditional. All right, thanks for that, Justin. And
no problem.
I think there's just one important thing left, and it's time for Eoin.
So I was looking up, I actually found a half-decent textbook, which I may end up shockingly buying in real life, which is The Beaver, Natural History of a Wetlands Engineer.
That's a great subtitle.
Because it was apparently produced in 2003 because there wasn't a definitive beaver textbook. And they
Shocking.
Yeah. So the largest prehistoric beaver was as big as a black bear.
Whoa.
Though some of these are disputed. And there were 2 species of beaver, which I've mentioned before. Taxonomists differ about whether they should be separate species. However, the American beaver has 40 chromosomes and the European has 48. So I'd say that's a pretty compelling argument for different species.
Excellent. All right. Good luck for Worlds, Eoin, if I'm not talking to you before then. You will be also appearing in the Legend of the Five Casts podcast.
Yes.
Where 5 different podcasts come together for the greater good.
I wasn't
sure where I was going there.
Only.
Yeah, I really hope you're ahead.
Train wreck. It should be great fun.
Excellent. All right, thanks everyone in chat for sticking around and for some excellent comments in chat and just adding to the conversation. And we'll be back in 2 weeks after Worlds to talk about how it all went down and
And to hail our new world champion.
And to hail the Shogun himself.
But it's a reverse hex. Now that it's been put on, it has no power.
Yeah.
It has no power over you.
We put that evil on you before Gen Con, so it's,
And I said,
And it
don't
works
you
pretty-
put that evil on me there as well, so we can continue my stratagem.
All right. Awesome. Thanks. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
take care,
Thanks
everybody.
for tuning in.
Thanks for watching.